Meantime, the House Foreign Affairs Committee set to hold its first hearing today, examining President Biden's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that left 13 U.S. service members dead. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann was part of Task Force Pineapple, the volunteer organization of veterans that helped charter flights out of Afghanistan during that time. He's also one of the witnesses appearing before the committee today. But before that, he joins us now. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for being here. What are you going to tell Congress today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Todd. You know, really what I'm going to try to do today is just to try to represent, 800,000 Afghanistan war veterans and their families, and maybe try to tell a story of how this impacted our veterans and our military families in ways that I don't think has really been revealed, and also try to remind people why Afghanistan still matters so much a year and a half later, because we've tried to turn the page on that country in a way that a lot of veterans believe is going to put us right back where we started.
Hey, we're a little bit removed from this. This happened in August of 2021, but I'd imagine that the impacts on our brave servicemen and women are still being felt to this day. You said you're going to testify about that. Give us a little preview right now. What are these folks experiencing still to this day?
Yeah, well, imagine being on the world's longest 911 call, Todd. I mean, when our Afghan allies, the commandos, the special forces, were hunted by the Taliban and no one else picked up the phone, these veterans who served with them did pick up the phone. And forming organizations like Dunkirk and Moral Compass and Task Force Pineapple, we tried to, help guide them to safety, but a lot of them didn't make it. And so these veterans and these military family members and these other volunteers have stayed on the phone with them for a year and a half, cashing in their pensions, their kids' college funds, to pay for food drops and safe houses. And that story's not getting told. And our veterans have already paid their dues. They've run those miles, and yet they're still on the phone sustaining with a humanitarian effort what is an Uncle Sam-sized problem with their pension funds.
Yeah, so
and it's not right.
Sorry, we have a situation always when the people that give the most of their lives, literally in many instances, actually their lives, continue to give, and you just highlighted that. Contrast that with when President Biden was busy checking his watch as the bodies of those 13 fallen service members were brought home. It is not an image that the Democrats want to put out there because it's bad. It makes them look horrible. What do you think Democrats are going to ask you today?
Well, what I'm hoping is that Democrats and Republicans will ask questions responsibly about what happened and what are the lessons learned from this and how can we prevent this from happening again? How can we bring back the Afghan Adjustment Act that can help Afghan commandos and others have a pathway to freedom? I mean, there's plenty to go around, honestly, Todd. I served under multiple administrations in this war, and frankly, none of them should be pounding their chests about any of this. What I'm hoping, and I think most veterans are hoping to see, is a true bipartisan approach to what happened and get to the bottom of it, or at least start that process the way that our veterans stepped up and we set politics aside when all of this happened and we just focused on our allies. Wouldn't it be great if Congress gave that a run?
We want to know what went wrong. The committee's pressed the State Department for documents and information, but are being stonewalled by the State Department trying to get to the bottom of what went wrong. What do you think these documents will say that the White House and Democrats don't want getting out that will show exactly what went wrong?
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I think that what's going to come out of this hearing through multiple conversations, because like today, you're going to hear from people who were on the ground. You're going to hear from the veterans who were involved in this. And many of us were involved in helping American citizens and green card holders get to freedom when no one else would help them. And I think the real frustration and moral injury for veterans right now, Todd, is that we're not seeing a response from institutional leaders. We're not seeing institutional leaders from State Department, senior DOD leaders, certainly the administration, stepping up and just taking ownership for the problem, the way that we were trained and held accountable to do as veterans during warfare. The very standards that we were held to not leave an ally behind were completely violated by the leaders that we trusted. And that caused a massive moral injury. I think we're on the front end of a mental health tsunami. We've got an 81% spike in calls to the VA suicide hotline 1 year after this abandonment. And if our leaders don't step up on this, we're going to see this thing get even worse.
There's also the other elephant in the room, which is the Taliban runs a country now with billions upon billions of dollars in equipment that we literally gave to them. So describe the latest on the situation in Afghanistan after our disastrous pullout.
This is another thing that has veterans really concerned right now, is because there are 20. I just had an interview with Ahmed Massoud, the leader of the National Resistance Front, who's getting virtually no support from the U.S. And according to him, There are 27 violent extremist organizations operating in Afghanistan, to include al-Qaeda and ISIS, with complete impunity on the very NATO bases that we trained and operated from. And as Congressman Mike Waltz says, the dashboard is blinking red on a pre-9/11 type situation, and no one's talking about it. And I think this is, veterans, we lived through this. We saw what happened on 9/11. We said never again will we have the lack of intelligence and partner capacity that allowed this to happen. And we fought and we bled for it for 20 years, and then we left it on the side of the road to be hunted and killed.
That is both disappointing, it is both frightening, and it shouldn't happen. We're not that far away from 9/11. It was 20 plus years ago. We should be still deep in the lessons of that. And to hear you say that we're not is frightening. Hopefully there will be consequences to Afghanistan, and hopefully we will get some protection, some movement to keeping the next 9/11 from happening. Scott Mann, Lieutenant Colonel, you can get a copy of his book, Operation Pineapple Express, detailing the various rescue missions that he performed. Lieutenant Colonel, best of luck today. We're looking forward to it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.